Hiya, Keith. We have spent almost a year now asking people these quickfire questions, and today we're going to talk about our views on them, and we are going to talk about the Instagram story that we put on the other day, where you asked all these questions to all our viewers on Instagram, and they came up with their responses. So it should be a good episode. I'm looking forward to it.
It should be, mate. It was a lot closer than what I thought it would be. I thought you might get like a lot of people just wanting one category of answers, but it's spread out quite evenly, bar one of the questions, which was a bit more dominant in one area. So I'm looking forward to chatting about it and getting more into it.
Yeah, totally. When we give our opinion, are we gonna come? What angle are we gonna come from? Are we gonna suggest if we could have one or the other, or are we gonna come from a viewpoint of if we could add one of these skills to our game? What do you want to do?
I think, do you know what? I reckon we do what's worked for us.
Okay.
And then you can talk about if you could add any of these to your game, then it's worth, yeah.
Okay.
Because everyone's different, aren't they? I have my way, you have your way.
Yeah.
No one's right, no one's wrong. It's just
I don't know. No, absolutely. Okay. Should we? What do you want to start with? Pace and bounce?
Yeah. I mean, should we talk about the results that came back in for that?
Yeah. Go for it.
So pace or bounce, this was the most uneven one, it was 61% pace people voted for to 39% of bounce. I'm someone who had no pace or have no pace.
That's not true. That is not true. You definitely have more pace than you give yourself credit.
But predominantly, yeah, people want pace. I think it's the thing that gets people on the seats, isn't it? And it's exciting if you can bowl with a good bit of pace behind you, you can get certain batters jumping around. Bounce is for, I feel like, more the type of bowler that is interested in playing misses, but genuine playing misses through a bit more skill, whereas those playing misses which are too quick, it's just a ball of speed and there's a lot of oohs and ahs and jumping around. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, mate.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement here. So I've given away what my thoughts are. I'm in agreement with the majority here who said pace, because sometimes I'm going to come at it from different angles. Sometimes getting too much bounce, it actually hinders you. It makes it hard to get bowled, hard to get LBs. And in doing so, if you try and get those, you actually end up having to bowl so full that you kind of bowl half volleys. Whereas if you've just got like bulk speed, it kind of doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think back to sometimes when we play on outgrounds in county cricket, and they're tennis bally, they're slow and tennis bally, and they can be some of the hardest pitches to bowl on because your margin of error in terms of your length just disappears because the ball sits up and it bounces more than you want almost.
Yeah. No, I agree. Do you know what? It just brought back a memory. I played a club game up north this years ago, and I don't know if you find this from like doing a bit of sub-proing yourself. There's always that one clubby that always seems to be a bit envious that you're a pro and they're not, and they feel that they could do what you do and whatever else. I was playing a game, I think it was for, I can't remember if it was like Longridge or Salisbury or something like that, up in Lancashire, and I was bowling a length which for county cricket was perfect length. But I was aware if I went any fuller, it was going to be a half volley. And the way the batter was batting it, he was just swinging as hard as he could. So I didn't want to pitch it any fuller.
Yeah.
Because if he gets hold of it, he's going to murder it for 4 or 6. So I'm holding my length, kind of hoping he nicks one almost. And the old club legend I think he was coming on second, like first change. Didn't like, obviously, I was bowling. I was taking his spot. He started saying, it's no good bowling that length here at this level, mate. It might be good on county cricket, but not club level. I'm thinking, you have no idea what I'm trying.
That's touched a nerve with you, hasn't it?
No, it just maybe he just all day he was hating me for no reason. It's like, I help your team win. But yeah, it can. There is a length in club cricket. You don't want to go any further because the wickets do seem to bounce more. So I would have preferred pace myself. Of a bounce, but everyone has their own choice.
Well, I mean, we're in good company, or everyone that said pace is in good company here. I'm sure people won't mind me saying, but probably the best bowler we've interviewed so far on the podcast is Dale Steyn. I think that's fair. We've interviewed some amazing bowlers, but for me, he's the pinnacle. He said pace, and he basically referenced sort of skidding the ball under the bat almost, or through a batter and under the bat, getting LBs and bowls just through being so quick off the pitch. And I think that's perfect sense. Obviously, he's from South Africa, so typically you would get more bounce there than you would in the UK, perhaps, which might explain his thinking. But I'm inclined to agree with him, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Swing or seam?
Well, it was 53 to 47 in favour of swing.
No, in favour of nip.
Nip. Sorry, nip. Let me correct. In favour of nip, which I lean more towards that side. I was more a swing bowler, but I've learned that nip is more testing, or can be more testing, more times than not. You don't have to be as perfect when you're nipping it as you do swing.
Yes, that is so true. I think in seam, for the vast majority of people, is absolutely the way to go for a few reasons. It's a simpler game plan. There's no guessing involved as in terms of your line. You basically, with seam, you bowl the line you want and you hope for the best. No kidding. There's more to it than hoping for the best, but you bowl your line, and if it seems, happy days. Whereas with swing, there's always this unknown factor, isn't there, of just how much it's swinging. And for whatever reason, that comes and goes within overs, within spells during the day. So there is guesswork with swing, which makes it hard.
Also, the ball condition, Chris, as well. That's
absolutely.
You're bowling with someone that just crashes the shiny side. It could be, and you're not really great at shining the ball. All of a sudden, that swing's gone, and you're not as effective as you'd like, basically.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I won't mention names, but I remember at times I'd come on to bowl the over after maybe an over of bouncers, or it might be some cross seam, or it might just be someone missing the seam a bit and kind of ruining the shiny side. And at the start of the over, you can't be greedy. You have to bowl a tight line because you don't really know what the ball's going to do. And actually, sometimes it almost improves during your over, and then it goes back to square one the following one. So there's again, you have to be quite intelligent, I think, to be aware of all of these things, which isn't always easy, is it? In the heat of battle or whatever, sometimes you want to be on autopilot, and having to constantly make these decisions in your head, it leaves you open to a few errors. The one that you try and swing too much and it drifts onto the pads.
Or you're bowling against the breeze for the way you want to swing it, and then you're trying to correct yourself there as well. You've got to be on the ball so much when you're swinging it. When you're wobbling it, it doesn't really matter what end you bowl from, as long as you've got a good line, a good length. If you can learn how to get the ball to move and the way you want it to do, the way you want it to move, then you're always in the game. You're always challenging the batsman.
So I actually haven't picked what I prefer here, because it's kind of literally very close. It's probably I do love swing bowling, right? There's something about it that just I find really pleasing. However, I think there's quite a lot of factors that affect what's better on a given day. So, for example, if I was playing club cricket only, then I think there's a really good argument just to try and seam it and bowl wobble seam. Definitely. In fact, definitely. If you play on a wicket that is super green, and I'm talking like, in a county game, end of the season when teams are trying to force a result, so they leave loads of grass on, the randomness of seam works in your favour, whereas the sort of, I guess the element of predictableness of swing doesn't work in your favour if the ball's doing everything off the surface anyway. However, and this is not mentioned in this, if you sent me to Pakistan for a test tour, I'm not seaming a ball. I want the ball reverse swinging. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that sense, when it gets super flat and maybe test standard, I'd prefer the swing. But I think there's a lot of arguments for the lower down the levels you go, that seems the right option.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this out there. A bit of a question. A question. Would you say the better the batsman, technically the better the batsman, the more you would try swinging it?
Oh,
Because
the
I'm
better
thinking,
the batter.
I'm throwing this out there. If batters are listening, they're listening. I'd say over the years, techniques haven't been as good as they used to be, and I've become someone who wobbles it more because I feel like techniques have been exposed more with white ball cricket. That technically sound batting has gone out of red ball cricket a little bit, so it makes it easier to kind of wobble it maybe and just have a chance. Whereas if you go back a few years and you're bowling against someone who you felt was technically correct and organised, you'd maybe want to be swinging it to try and get the ball moving in the air a bit more, get them maybe, I don't know, just the thought.
This is why this is a good episode. I'm just blowing our own trumpets here. But like when you think, if what you're saying is correct, defensive techniques have maybe gotten a bit worse. Attacking techniques have probably got better.
Yes, yeah.
But you're right. If you're the nipping ball, your defensive technique has to be elite.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, so any like you say, any error there, you're winning. Whereas I think because with swing you can track it a bit more as a batter, then you're right. It shifts that balance a little bit. That's a really good point.
Basically, any batters listening, if you see me bowling wobble seam at you, check your technique.
Yeah, if you amazing. That's so funny. You know what? Actually, 2 years on the bounce. Little story here. We played against Yorkshire at the end of the season.
Yeah,
and both times Leicestershire had to win to try and force promotion. And so in doing so, left a bit of grass on the pitch. I say a bit, a lot of grass on the pitch.
Yeah.
And across those 2 games, they're very recent, so they're in my memory. It definitely helped you if you bowled seam and wobble seam, because it was just more random. Facts. It was just you bowl your line, you hit the seam hard, and you let the wicket work for you, rather than trying to be too careful, or not too careful. That's the wrong word. Too perfect and too correct with swing. So no, I completely agree. And also, again, if let's say you're bowling in a unit where everyone else bowls cross seam, right? That's an extreme example. That won't happen. But let's just use that as an example. You're the one bloke who likes to swing it. You're not swinging it. If you know what I mean, you're just not going to. The ball's going to deteriorate too quick and stuff like that. So there's an element of you've got to work with your team and stuff like that. Or rather, you've got to be smart and know what you can do to help the team. I don't know what your thoughts are there.
I'd agree with that. You've just got to be as highly skilled as possible for any occasion. Basically, you've got to find a way of utilizing the ball and the conditions the best way you can. So essentially, even though these questions, we're going to keep going through them, you want to be able to do as much of this as you can, basically.
Yeah.
Be the best you can be for any scenario, any situation.
Totally. Oh, actually, last week's episode we did with Jamie Overton.
Yeah.
And we discussed the oval pitches, didn't we? And I know this is something we've heard kind of on the rumour mill, but he kind of confirmed it, that the oval was one ground in particular where it felt like you were rewarded for swing more than wobble seam, which probably isn't the trend these days. But that's a good example of knowing grounds, different conditions, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly, as you might expect, Sean Pollock, Kyle Abbott, 2 top end bowlers, voted for seam on this one. Dale Steyn opted for swing. He's arguably the GOAT. Him and James Anderson. So we'll just leave it at that. What's the next one, mate?
So we've got bowled or caught behind. This is just people's preference, isn't it? I'm
Yes.
surprised it was as balanced. I thought bowlers would want to be a bit more selfish on this one, of it just being about them.
Oh, you thought that more people would say bowled.
Well, yeah. Just from, I mean, it was 58% bowled to 42% caught behind, but I thought bowlers would want to see the stumps being rattled, the bells flying off, the stumps caught wheeling out the ground. There's no better feeling than that in my eyes, but each to their
Yeah.
own. What are yours? What is your answer?
I'm one of those people that said caught. And the reason why I've said caught is because caught behind a nick off nearly always looks amazing. It always is very pure. It's like a silky thing. You know, you might get a specky catch, you might get a rock solid slip catch. There's the kind of it just looks great
Yeah,
nearly all the time.
yeah,
However, I agree with you. If you uproot stumps and cartwheel stumps, that is elite. However, it is a little bit depressing when sometimes you bowl someone and literally the stumps barely move and you just knock the bells off. And you feel like you're bowling rat space. Do you know what I mean? Because the stumps have been put in and it's too hard. They don't
yeah,
move anywhere. It's like, oh,
yeah. So, how many wickets have you got, Chris? Just first class.
I'm close to 600.
Okay. Bear in mind, let's say your front foot has always been behind the line, so there's no balls included.
Always behind the line.
Right. So, how many of those bowled where you've hit the stumps have been given not out?
Okay, yeah.
They've all been given out, aren't they? Because it's not a no ball, you've bowled them. The only thing is with nicks that go behind is they're not
Yeah.
always guaranteed to be caught. So
Mm.
that's the thing that I'm 100% when I've let go of that ball and it's hit the stumps, it's out. But when there's an edge, it's in someone else's hands to catch the ball, which can leave a little bit of heart in mouth. Are you going to catch it? So I like the fact of me doing it myself than relying on others to take part in my
You know
wicket.
what? Okay. I'm gonna share this story.
I'm just wondering how many wickets you would be on if every catch was caught behind the stumps. I reckon you might be more towards 650, 700.
True. Well, I remember like a few years ago, I was on 49 wickets, right? We're playing Worcester, and I kept going. I was like, I want 50 poles here. And I nicked off. It was either Ed Barnard or like Charlie Morris as night watchman.
Mm.
I remember like doing a proper shift, proper long spell to get that 50 up. Back foot nick, first slip, and it was Hassan Azad was in there. And it was quite a good pitch. So I can remember watching it carry nice. And it just hit him.
Well,
hit him straight in the middle of the chest. And just I don't know how he went about it. If you're on YouTube, you can see he kind of went like that, hit him here, dropped on the floor, and I finished the season on 49 wickets, which no professional county seamer wants to finish on 49 poles. If you know what I mean, 1 away from 50, that's pretty heartbreaking. So I get what you're saying.
that is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Because I know the emotion you would have been going through as that ball's edged. Oh, lovely. This is going to be my 50th. I've got another wicket. It's getting there. It's getting there. He's going to catch. I'm excited. It looks like he might not be catching this. He looks a bit, hold on, it's hitting me in the chest. Please grab it. Dropped it. Deflation.
Yeah. It bounced off him properly. I was like, oh my God. And you would have gone through it. I know we talked again a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Is even if your cordon is really, really solid, you're then surprised if they drop one. Like you would have been like Ricky Clark every now and again, which is equally like kind of confusing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? The emotions you go through there because you're like, oh my God, Clarky, you're just absolutely like the best slipper ever. And then you got the Balotelli on, like why always me or whatever.
So that's my reason as to why I got bowled. It's guaranteed out. There's nothing else that needs to happen. It leaves my hand. It hits the stump. That's it. It doesn't edge the bat, hit the edge of the bat, and I'm waiting for one more bit of action to take place. They're already out.
Mm.
This was obviously just a preference again of what people prefer to. And I'm wondering if people are answering this because they find it easier to do, or if they think it's more effective. Which that's something we don't know. Is people have chosen 54% of people chose back of the hand slower ball over the 46% choosing knuckle ball.
Yeah.
If you were good at both, which do you think would be your preference?
This is a seriously good one. I personally prefer the back of the hand slower ball, probably because I'm a little more old school. But I played with Ricky Clark, who
Yeah.
I reckon that's the best I've seen it bowled. I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's some good bowlers that have bowled it. I can't remember anyone better than Clark at this ball, and I think there's a few reasons. I feel like the kind of the top spin element on it means that even on like properly flat pitches, you get a bit of a reaction and a bit of a kick
Yeah.
on, which can kind of cause errors from batters. And I think that's slightly more than with a knuckleball. I think if you asked 100 batters, you've got to hit a six off this last ball to win the game. I think they'd find it easier off a knuckle than the back of the hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to know your view here.
No, I'd agree. Like, fortunate to play with Clarkey, and he was amazing at on tap. He'd execute it without an issue. He just great at it. But I think we saw the best of the slower back of the hand slower ball compared to what others had. But the fact he would get it to go up so well and deceive a batsman and then dip so much, I think if you're good at doing that, it's so difficult to hit. And I just think you deceive the batsman a little bit more because a wicket could be grip a little bit as well. It could bounce on you a little bit more. It's deceiving in a few different ways. So no, I thought I'd agree. I think it's for me slower ball back of the hand by far.
I think both of these deliveries can get butchered a bit, and if they're not disguised well, I think neither of them are particularly good. You know, so I tell you who I thought was a brilliant bowler. To be fair, do you remember Faulkner, the Australian?
Yeah.
I look at his back of the hander, and it's not even in the same league as Clarkie's.
No.
You could see it quite easily.
Yeah.
And equally, when you're bowling a knuckleball, this is something for listeners to consider. You've got to conceal the fact that at some point you're going to show the ball, and it will be there will be a tell almost.
Yeah.
And if you're running into bowl, gripping it in your knuckles, just running in like this. Sorry if you're not watching, but let's say you're just showing the ball when you run up. Batters will pick it, and then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I think they're both. I mean, they're both great balls. I prefer the backhand like you. I would also say, if I could have one delivery, from anybody here, and it would to have in my career, if I was having my career again, it would probably be Clarkie's back of the hand slow ball.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you, mate. It's more like you can have your cutters, you can have your other variations, but a top tier back of the hand slow ball, I think, is hard to beat.
Do you think you have to have one of those balls in today's game?
Yeah, yes, 100%. It's too difficult, I think, as it is as a bowler. I think you've got to. The boundaries are smaller than they used to be. Like it's a lot. I feel it's quite a lot batter focused to hit sixes and stuff. And I think you've got to be able to find a different way. And let's be honest, you can almost take the wicket out of it with a back of the hand slow ball, more than any other ball. You can try and bowl a cutter, but if that wicket is not great for a cutter, it's just sliding on quite nicely and you're going to get dispatched. So
100%. You need the wicket gripping, don't you, for cutters?
Back of the hand, it's the deceiving side of it in the air. And then what comes with that is normally a bit more bounce if you're very good at executing it.
Yeah. I 100% agree. No, I 100% agree, mate. Should we do the final one?
Yes, yeah.
So go on then. You do it. You go.
Well, this was again. It was a 54-46 in favour of a Yorker.
Over the bouncer.
Over a bouncer, which it can kind of work either way. I think people could be looking and thinking I could have a good bouncer, but it could be taken on. It could be top edged. Yorkers at the right opponent is quite difficult, but your better batters, I feel, find a way of kind of getting hold of it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, this is really close, understandably, and I hopefully the reason it's so close is because people who prefer different formats would say different things.
Yeah,
like if you love T20, for example, and that's the format that you're best at and you play, you almost certainly should be choosing Yorker here. Almost certainly, because the value of a Yorker is just going to be way higher for you than bouncer. Equally, if you don't ever play any, white ball cricket, then bouncer's probably the option.
Unless you're bowling 95 mile-an-hour rockets, that you might want to bowl the odd Yorker in a test match or a 4-day game. I agree. I think it's more based on formats, and I think you're right. If it was just white ball cricket, a lot more people would go for a good Yorker. But in red ball cricket, I think you see a lot more bouncers.
Yeah, totally. I mean, again, it's difficult. Like Liam Plunkett, who had his role through the middle, he probably would pick bouncer because ultimately his field's going to be third man, fine legs, and have his deep cover and his deep square. He's going to smash the middle of the pitch with his field like that. This one is really close. I'd argue if you were thinking purely in terms of cash, I know you're having a laugh, right? But genuinely, if you were thinking cash in the future, Yorker, do you think?
Yes, 1,000,000%. Yeah.
I like your teammate Ellis at Hampshire.
Yeah, but he had a good backhand slowy as well. If I remember correctly, he bowled a really good Yorker for the T20 finals a few years back to win the game. Then we checked and it was a no ball.
Yeah.
He then had the balls to literally go and went backhand slower ball and executed it unbelievably well. But two great skills executed perfectly. So yeah, you're right. He was
that's the pairing for cash.
Yeah. This is the thing. When you say pairing for cash, how many bowlers are there out there that are known as your death bowlers, that are your go-to bowlers? Realistically, there's people who kind of go, I'm the death bowler because I'll bowl at the end. But are they really death bowlers, or are they someone who just put the hand up and try and get it right? Like Malinga, he was someone who you knew at the end of an innings was going to possibly just win you a game from not getting anyone hitting boundaries against him, as an example. But there aren't many. There are a few, but there's not that many out there, I don't think.
You know what this makes me realise? And I know we're talking about this in other areas that we're going to try and expand the podcast and stuff like that. But I reckon that you can get a bowler, and once you get to know them, you can actually look at this kind of, and this is very basic, but I look at these kind of options and say, well, this would be a great area for you to focus, or not so much. Like for Ellis, what is he? He's quite, for example, Ellis, he's not a tall guy, is he?
No.
So he's got that natural trajectory for a Yorker way more than someone like we interviewed Craig Overton, who said he felt too tall for Yorkers and he couldn't quite get him in because he's coming from, and you're like, well, okay. So quite clearly, you've got to focus in the right way. Do you know what I mean? I don't know where I was going with that. Other than
also with Nelly is that he is someone. I don't know if have you faced him before?
No.
Quite skinny, a bit more like at you than what you think, but not tall. He's not trying to be tall. He's trying to be like Dale Steyn would say, like under the bat. that's one of his strengths, is rather than trying to be too tall, he's not tall, so why go for that? And his white ball cricket, almost, I think he's probably thinking, why would you want to have more bounce? Because it's just a better chance of a batsman getting hold of you. So he's low, skinny, he's quicker, he's onto you quicker than what you'd think. He's got a great backhand slow ball. He can execute a Yorker. He's got a nice solid base for white ball cricket and earning a nice bit of coin.
Oh, don't get me wrong. That's not the only way. It's not the only way you can earn loads of money, right? You can be quick and nip it all over the hockey with a great bouncer, and you're gonna have a central contract, for your country in terms of Test cricket. It's just different views. What I would say, actually, can we go back and revisit swing and seam?
Yeah.
All right, with a in a white ball context.
Yes,
100%. You're choosing swing, aren't you?
100% yes, because I am, because of what I've seen in the hundreds, especially.
Yeah.
One of our favourite bowlers, Dan Worrell, 90 miles an hour swinging it, and no one can get hold of it. And he's not swinging it a touch; he's hooping it. But it's at pace. Someone like a Spencer Johnson when he was over as well.
Lovely bowler.
It just seems that people can't play pace that's swinging as well as they can do with just out and out pace. It's just another element for them to have to deal with, and it's not that easy. So if any listeners, if you do want to be unreal, bowl absolute rockets, swinging it.
This is why, again, it's there's quite a lot of let's say someone's listening to this podcast and they're looking at it purely in terms of, right, I'm going to use this for advice and I'm going to try and copy the right option, for example. But you've got to do some soul searching first, haven't you? Like, which formats are your favorite and are you best at? Because actually the answers differ quite a bit for both. Yeah. Well, because is there an argument for bounce more than pace in white ball, or not? Am I just trying to be devil's advocate? I'm trying to do a Ricky Clark, devil's advocate.
I don't think so, personally, thinking about it now. That's me, though. I think people will still use that bounce somehow. I don't know how, but I just feel like, for instance, you bowl a bouncer, someone just leans back, thank you very much, because you get a bit of extra bounce. You saw Travis Head do it the other day, didn't you?
How well did he? Yeah.
I think more bounce, I'd be more worried, because it just means more chance of hitting it up in the air and it travelling off over a stand or something.
True. They're only going to bring the boundaries in more. They're never going to push them out again. So,
no.
If that's that again. That is the issue with having a good bouncer, or you've chosen bounce here, is you help batters get under the ball. And with a bouncer, invariably T20, there's a good chance you've only ever got either your third man or your fine leg. One of them is up.
Yeah.
Normally it's the fine leg, isn't it? So if you get someone like a Rishabh Pant, who's great at going inside it and hitting it behind square, like, you can't feel.
Even Test cricket, you've seen New Zealand trying to bump Gus Atkinson or Carson, they're just pulling it, and they've got men out, and it's still going for six. Like, sometimes it's not that easy.
No, that's very true. Well, in terms of analysing those questions, is there anything else you think that we need to focus in on, or have we answered them all?
No, I think that's it. I was interested in is I obviously put a reel out this morning about stance, grip, and and positioning the crease. And interesting, we did have a question on there of what can it show? What can those things show? I was quite interested that people weren't more aware of. What are your thoughts on, like, picking out something? I wanted to know what your thoughts are on it.
Well,
because we have analysis, don't we? We have analysis where we'll talk about someone's strength, someone's weakness, but within those videos that we've seen, you do pick up on things that someone who plays square of the wicket, you might see that the way they're holding the bat and only allows them to hit more square of the wicket. So that's why they want that. They want that ball a bit further back of a length. So you have to be a bit fuller. That kind of stuff.
100%. Actually, I did see the post, and we should reply to it. We're at the point.
I have done.
Oh, have you? Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Okay. Well, hopefully, I don't say something different to what you've you've said in the reply. I think the obvious one for me that you can tell quite quickly, I think, is the grip and kind of the bat face, whether it's choked or not.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
whether they're like ultimately whether they're a cutter or like a leg side player versus someone who hits through the V.
That's something I pretty much said in different words. Is that like grip, how they hold the bat, how they may grip the bat itself. That might show they're only able to access more like one side of the pitch. They can try to the other side, but they might struggle with that. So
I you know what? I remember once, because obviously I used to choke the hell out of it. I don't anymore since Project Ajinka Rahane started. I remember fielding. Jeets was bowling. So this is Warwickshire v Surrey back in the day. Ben Folkes was batting, and I noticed that he choked the bat quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at backward point, but I was quite far around because that's where Jeets tended to have that position. And I remember saying to him, I was like, and again, he might not listen to me because he's probably thinking you don't know anything about off spin, which I get, right? But I remember thinking this bloke holds back like me. I'm like, he's not hitting Jeets. And this was before batters reverse swept it all the time. I'm like, he's not getting it to me here. So I sort of, without asking, I sort of started shifting myself a bit squarer because he was pinching singles to my right hand at backward point. Shifted a bit squarer, and it actually tied him up for quite a bit because he was like, that's the only place he could hit it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's stuff like you pick up on it, don't you? What were the other question, or what was the other question the guy asked?
It's like he just said about stance or positioning. So I said positioning. Some people like to sit deep in the crease.
Yeah.
And they predominantly want your naturally good length ball to be a shorter length so they can cut or they can pull. It's small things that if you're not looking out for, you won't realise it. And if by the time you do, they could be on 70 or 80. Just small things that can help.
You know what? And this is especially for club players now, is it's important that you try and pick up on these things because you haven't got any background analysis to work with. So you've got to try and pick up on these. And even before that, I try not to believe in like stereotypes in general life, but actually when a keeper comes into bat, I'm assuming they cut the ball. First thing, that's literally, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for like a short, skanky wicket keeper that basically has a clip shot and a cut, and that's it. And then if they prove me wrong, I'll go from there based on technique or whatever, all these things. You've got to try and pick up on stuff and actually have some kind of, even the way they walk out to bat, the way they carry themselves, you can pick up on stuff.
Do you know what? Funny you say that. Try and cut this story down. Played a club game a few years ago. This guy walked out without a helmet, which was like red to
against you.
Yeah. But he was known as being really good on the short ball and he never wore a helmet. And we'd already had a bowler go off. This was club cricket. We had a bowler go off through done his hammy. So we had 9 fielders. And I could tell by the way this guy stood, I didn't feel like he could hit me through the kind of like towards mid-on. Yeah. And I said to my mate at the time, who was captain, I'm going to bounce him. And he's like, no, he's good on the short ball. I said, well, he may be all right, but I'm going to try and hit him to make sure he doesn't. He's trying to pull it, hit him just above the eyebrow. It's called for a lid. Right. Yeah. Now you switched on kind of thing. And my mate really wanted a mid-on, and I said no. So all I had on the leg side was a deep mid-wicket, a deep backward square, and a fine leg. And I'd either bounce him or bowl an away swinger really wide. He just couldn't do it. He could not do a thing. I rattled him a little bit with the bouncer. Yeah. But you can see he's trying to hit it towards mid-on, but I didn't allow the access for that. But that's all through picking small little details up of how he was setting up. So I was still able to do all right with nine fielders, like keeper and 8 others. So you can pick up on these things. I think bowlers need to just look at the finer details a lot harder than what they do.
And what was the other one? Positioning, grip.
Stance.
Is there another?
So I'd use the example. If someone's quite wide based and just predominantly sitting on the front foot, it's obvious then they want to be having the ball pitched up.
Yeah.
Might want to try and push them back a bit, kind of win that battle of, I'm not going to pitch it up for you. I'm going to make you think just about maybe sitting back a little bit, or narrowing that gap between their feet where they're actually more centralized. So when they do want to lunge forward, there's a bigger gap they have to move to get forward at that length that might not be there any push at one. It's all fine detail.
Your post today, obviously, it was an example of Coley nicking off to Hazel, wasn't it?
Yes. Who'd have thought?
Yeah, right. So, I mean, there will be a heap of stats that back up holding a channel to Coley, won't there? And holding your length.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Don't get me wrong. I know that you've still got to drive half volleys and put bad deliveries away. But the Gabba's renowned for pace and bounce typically. And like getting the big drive out against Hazelwood's a tricky option. So it goes to show, although all the background stats are pretty spot on.
Yeah, no, it's true. And actually, someone had mentioned in the comments about that is that talked about Tendulkar when he got quite a few runs against Australia, is that he got out similar one test. The next test, he put that shot away. He just did not go for that, and he ended up scoring like a double 100 or whatever. But someone of Coley's stature is still not able to resist seeing that ball out there. Yeah, I'm going for it. I'm not in great nick out there, but I'm still going for it, Schnick. Oh, no. I've done it again.
Yeah. It's interesting that. Speaking of Sachin, that's how I've gone about my hook shot my whole career. I've just decided to put it away. Do you know what I mean? Save it. Saving it for the right time. But no, I mean, if you're not blessed with having background stats, you've just got to pick up on it, haven't you? Pick up on these things. But they actually are, if you know what you're looking for, they're kind of quite simple, aren't they?
Yeah.
To be honest. Right. We'll leave it there then for today's episode. Hope you all really enjoyed it. And if you did, please give us a review. It will take you how many seconds to click those 5 stars, Keith? 2?
If that.
Yeah, and if you've got 30 seconds to spare, which I know you do, especially if you check your your mobile phone pickups and all those sort of things, then write a little review as well. We really appreciate that. But for now, we'll leave you to it. Take it easy.
Cheers.